we had a huge technical difficulties, and we had to, in a way, do a lot of different things to make sure that we are going live. So we are live. Thank you so much for your patience. And this one is going to be in English because essentially this is about Polish Nobel Prize laureates. And what I was planning to do is I wanted to present that one to a broader audience, Irish audience, and then talk about the Irish ones for the Polish audience. So we're going to start our presentation with Nobel Prize winner for 2018, Olga Tokarczuk. And she has been the, one of those laureates that we are very fortunate to know, okay? And I would be talking that to myself because I'm a big fan of Olga. And I was raised with her books, in a way. So the first part of Olga Tokarczuk that I want to discuss, give me 1 second. I have to make a few adjustments here to make sure I see everything I need to see. I must tell you that this technology is absolutely whatever. I'm not a big fan because it's not working when it's supposed to work, like today, for example. Okie dokie. So Olga Tokarczuk. So Olga Tokarczuk, guys, is an outstanding writer, essayist, and a devotee of Gustav Carl Jung. And she is an authority on philosophy and arcane knowledge. And undeniably, Olga Tokarczuk is a great discovery in Polish literature in the 90s. And she's admired by both critics and the readers. Phenomenon of popularity, and she's very much respected for her good taste, knowledge, literary talent, philosophical depth, and the knack for storytelling. So she's been one of the most critically acclaimed and most translated Polish writers. Okay, Olga Tokarczuk said about herself, "To me, writing novels is telling fairy tales to oneself, moved to maturity." I love that one. Now, I want to talk today about 2 times, Primeval and Other Times, Prawiek i inne czasy, that was released in 1996. And the other one would be House of Day, House of Night. So these were 2 the first greatest commercial and critical success for Olga Tokarczuk. And just to say that Olga Tokarczuk herself, she studied psychology at the University of Warsaw, and currently she lives in Wałbrzych. Maybe now not so much as before. She's probably very, very busy after receiving the Nobel Prize. So Olga's 3rd novel, Primeval and Other Times, is still widely considered the greatest and most resonant success and a top achievement in recent Polish mythological prose. And a mythical village called Prawiek, said to be located in the very center of Poland in some kind of archetypal microcosm in which all the joys and sorrows known to mankind, they cover it all. I'm just trying to see if I can mute some of the users just to avoid the echoes. And if I could ask maybe users to mute themselves, jakbym mogła prosić, żeby się wyłączyć swoje mikrofony, bo przyjdzie czas ewentualnie na rozmowę, a teraz mamy pewien pogłos. Dziękuję bardzo. So when we talk about Primeval and Other Times, Then we have to essentially look into that village. And The Economist wrote that about the primeval and other times. So Primeval and Other Times recounts the hard passage of an imaginary village through a century of conflict, distant coups and decay. Center stage, however, are the village's colorful characters. An aristocrat who withdraws from life to play a rabbi's fantastical board game, promising answers to life's great questions. A dog-loving madwoman pursued by the moon. A Soviet soldier who seeks sexual relief among forest beasts. A priest who wishes to tame a frog-infested river. Overlooking all is a vain, selfish god who has become thoroughly bored with mankind and who must play second fiddle in Mr. Karczuk's pantheistic world to material things. A sprawling mushroom root which links all matter together, or a wooden coffee grinder with which a young girl mills out time. So that's prawiek i inne czasy, primeval and other times. And now I want to show you the House of Day, House of Night. I have chosen those two because they are essentially translated into English, and these are the most popular ones. So if anybody would like to access them, they are available in English, no problem. Okay, and House of Day, House of Light has been shortlisted for the International IMPAC Dublin Literary Award in 2004. And is very different both in genre and in tone. And in fact, it is misleading to call it a novel. It's a kind of a hybrid of diverse and more or less advanced plots, quasi-essay observations, some kind of private notes, and something like that. So, and it is Tokarczuk's more the most personal and local book, drawing inspiration from the area where she lives, which is Wałbrzych, a village in Sudety, that area anyway, in Poland, and close to the Czech border. So, so that is House of Day, House of Light. I must say that, just a very private thing, when I was in secondary school, I was a big lover of Olga Tokarczuk. And I remember when I was taking part in some literary competition, like declamation of some sort of poems. And I won that on a certain level, like our county level. And I remember I chose Olga Tokarczuk's prose. And I remember what the jury has said, and they said, we suggest for the future to choose some more prominent authors than Olga Tokarczuk, because who is Olga Tokarczuk? Nobody knows her, and nobody has really kind of regards her as a writer, as a writer. So when she got her Nobel Prize, I was like, so now you know who's Olga Tokarczuk. So this is the woman. So this is the woman who wins the Nobel Prize. Okay, so that's a bit of a personal account. Now I want to show you Wisława Szymborska, and she won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1996. And something that might interest you a lot, I'll say in a minute, because she actually visited Limerick. Okay, she visited Limerick with Kolenda Zalewska, with a journalist, and she was here not that long ago. So basically, Szymborska is a very, very humble person, and she enjoyed calm life. She neither appreciated questions that invaded her privacy, nor consider it appropriate at all to talk about herself. So she did not enjoy any kind of celebration. She definitely wasn't a celebrity. And when she was being declared the Nobel Prize laureate, Her friends said it and considered that as the Stockholm tragedy. Why? Because it forced her to give more interviews in a month than she had faced in her life until the Nobel Prize committee decision in 1996. So you imagine how dramatically her life changed, and she wasn't really proud of it because she loved her privacy. So Szymborska didn't like to talk about literature or poetic techniques, believing that an author's expression should come solely in her, on his work. And the childlike sense of humor that we can see emanating from Szymborska's work has always been with her for all her life. And she was very much known for giving cards with very quirky collages to her friends, or organizes this kind of lotteries, and the winners were getting delightfully kitschy prizes that she was a huge collector of. Unfortunately, Szymborska has passed away in 2012, but she was in Limerick probably in 2010. So that was very interesting. Yes, that was 2010 when Kolenda Zalewska, she has made documentary feature Life is Bearable at Times, and we can see Szymborska wandering the streets of Limerick here, where we are, and she was really gleefully improvising limericks with her companions. So Szymborska was famous for writing limericks, those small witty jokes and playful poems, and the subjects of these poems vary. I found one which is translated, because it's extremely difficult to translate limericks. So I have one which is called On the Bus, and it offers a glimpse of that playful spirit that Szymborska had. So if we go, my wife died young. Before her death, she promised that she would be waiting for me. Okay, but I'm an old man now, bald and crippled. I will say, Zosia, Zosia, and she will not recognize me. So how will it work? I will carry my ID to my coffin. So while perhaps more subtle in her published poetry, admirers of Szymborska no doubt are familiar with her characteristic wit, and her playful style was made very evident to the world when in 1996 she began her Nobel lecture, and she said, they say the first sentence in any speech is always the hardest. Well, that's one behind me anyway. So that was humble, concise, witty Szymborska. I suppose what is quite also interesting of Szymborska are her works. I'll show that to you in a minute. Szymborska said herself, I had quite a happy life, but there was plenty of death and disenchantments in it. But of course, I'd rather not talk about personal things, and I wouldn't like others to talk about them as well. For people, I have a different face. That's why I'm presented from the anecdotic side, as a happy person who does nothing beside thinking up games and riddles. When I'm down, worried, I don't go out to people. So that's essentially Szymborska. And I wanted to show you a few of her collages. This is something that she loved doing. She was cutting out pieces and she was putting it together into some sort of new pictures that she loved doing. And they were very funny and very witty. Like this one, I have to read that in Polish, but it's amazing. Wdowiec 55 lat, mający 6 dorosłych dzieci, posiadający w większym mieście Prus Zachodnich wielki dom i fabrykę, poszukuje na tej drodze 139 żony. Panie w starszym wieku lub wdówki z majątkiem raczą łask swe zgłoszenia z dołączeniem fotografii z pełnym zaufaniem nadesłać do exp pracy pod literą N 139. Dyskrecja rzecz honoru. Ok? To jest jedna rzecz z szymborskiej prac. Kolejny z jej kolarzy. So that's another one of her collages. Another one. And another one. So Wisława Szymborska also said, when I write, I always feel as if somebody was standing behind me and making funny faces. That is why I always keep focused and I avoid as much as I may big words. So she's one of those that you can definitely love straight away. And I had prepared to read a poem in Polish and in English of Szymborska, but I will do it later on today in a separate spot because we are running huge behind schedules because of the very technical problems. So we'll come back to it and I'll give you a bit of a gist of Szymborska's writing, okay? So now we want to move on to another person that everybody knows, and that's Lech Wałęsa, the Nobel Peace Prize winner in 1983. And Lech Wałęsa received the Peace Prize for his campaign for freedom of organization in Poland. And we know that he had just been released from the internment. The Communist Party had tried to in vain, basically, to break him. The symbol of revolt against the party's monopoly on power. And Wałęsa was employed as a marine electrician at the Lenin shipyard in Gdańsk. He was fired for having participated in demands for independent labor unions. So the workers that have been out on the street, several of them have been killed by police and soldiers while they were demonstrating for better living conditions. And during a strike in 1980, Wałęsa managed to enter the Lenin yard and led the negotiations with the authorities. And these ended in a victory for Solidarity Union, because workers, intellectuals, and the Catholic Church, they just formed a very much united front. So in 1981, the Polish authorities banned Solidarity, alleging that this was the only way of basically preventing a Soviet invasion. And we had a martial law. After a couple of years, like Soviets, they abandoned that policy and Poland was gradually liberalized. In 1989, Solidarity won three free elections, and in the following year, Wałęsa was elected president of Poland. Why this is important is when, for example, I think about Lech Wałęsa. I think he's one of the best known Poles in the world, apart from John Paul II. And another person, Marie Skłodowska-Curie, which I'm going to mention, everybody thinks she's actually a French, but she's naturalized French and essentially born in Poland, born and raised in Poland. But going back to Wałęsa, so what Wałęsa managed to do with his people was to get on the street, thousands of people, and protest, okay? And that was the biggest revolution led by people to regain independence from the Soviet regime. And I just have to mention that whatever is happening in Poland at the moment, with All Poland Women's Strike, Ogólnopolski Strajk Kobiet, and people gathering on the streets, which has become a social movement as well. We didn't see that, and we didn't have it for the past 30 years. So this is the first time since Poland gained independence and liberated from the Soviet regime that we have that situation in Poland. So that resembles basically the big demonstrations back in 70s and 80s. And those demonstrations changed Poland forever. Okay, so in this way, we also want to say to our Polish brothers and sisters that we are there with you. Another person that I want to mention is Czesław Miłosz, the Nobel Prize in Literature 1980. And Czesław Miłosz was very much appreciated by Seamus Heaney, that I'm going to talk about in the second part of the presentation. That would be about Irish Nobel Prize winners, and that will be in Polish. Okay, so I do hope I'm not really disappointing you that this is not in Polish, but that was the original plan, to kind of join interculturally in this mix. Okay, so Czesław Miłosz was born essentially in Lithuania, and his family background was of an ancient lineage and an old environment that was primitive folk traditions. So they all lived together in this complex historical heritage. At that time, in 1911 and upwards, people lived in close contact with a still primitive nature, and any signs of industrialization didn't have that huge impact on them. This country that was back in 1911, and this culture and most of its people basically no longer exist. And the Nazi terror and genocide, the war, and later the Stalinistic tyranny have wiped them out in hardships exceeding what Poland and the Baltic states have suffered many, many times before. Miłosz, from an early childhood and early education, he took interest in literature and became one of the leading writers in the young generation who wanted to regenerate poetry, and who, with danger to their lives, those guys took an active part in underground freedom movements against the Nazi oppression. And he was a convicted socialist, and he was attached to the New Poland's political and intellectual elite. In time, he became a trusted official and cultural person who represented his country abroad, as essentially he moved to US. However, the political climate changed during the Cold War in Stalinistic direction. So there was no free socialistic Poland, which young people hoped for. And that just didn't exist. And with this kind of uncompromising demand for artistic integrity and human freedom, Miłosz just could no longer support the regime. So in 1951, he left Poland and settled in Paris as a free writer, and this is a term that is not without ironic overtones. In 1960, he moved to US as a lecturer on Polish literature at Berkeley University in California, and his roots in Poland and connections with its intellectual life have, however, never been broken. Thinking about Miłosz, Miłosz is a very intellectual writer, philosophically and ideohistorically schooled. He's been familiar with Catholic thought in a way reminiscent of the erudition and keen mind of his compatriot and kindred soul, Leszek Kołakowski. His writing is learned and dialectic, full of voices, full of references, pastiches and ironies, breaches of styles, roles, polyphonic in its structure. But he's also a very sensual writer. He has the name of big and great linguistic artists, so that his poetry can only be fully appreciated by those, I'm afraid, who read Polish. because one cannot find the musical and rhythmical qualities and the sensuousness, linguistic sensuousness. You cannot really give justice in reproduction and reproduce it in translation. So if you really want to know Miłosz, you are very welcome to dive deeply into Polish language, which is very beautiful language, but quite complicated, I must say. Looking at my children, even trying to master it in reading and writing. Okay, but coming back to Miłosz, so Miłosz had a strong passion for multiplicity and tensions, but he also had a very strict discipline as a person. I'd say Miłosz is a difficult writer. In the best sense of this word, like difficult meaning very complex, very erudite, challenging, demanding, changing between different modes and levels, from elegiac to some furious, abstract and extreme, very concrete writing. So he's a writer of a great importance and captivating, arresting you, not least because of his complications, but because of his sensuousness. Now I move on to not literally figure, but a figure that is very often forgotten in the Western world, thinking that she was essentially French, but she wasn't. She was Polish. Maria Skłodowska-Curie was born and bred in Poland. So she was naturalized French. She got 2 Nobel Prizes, and which is amazing, is actually that was in physics and then in chemistry. So she was first woman to win the Nobel Prize, okay, ever. She was also the first person to win the Nobel Prize in 2 scientific fields, different chemistry and physics. She was first woman to become a professor at the University of Paris. She has done a pioneering research on radioactivity, and she established Curie legacy that essentially won together 5 Nobel Prize. So the first one in 1903, she shared with her husband Pierre Curie and physicist Henry Becquerel. So those people, those women, strong women, beautiful women, and we looked at 3 women and 2 strong men and 3 maybe even stronger women today. I hope I just raised a bit of your interest. It was just a teaser for you to look into those Polish people that deserve our attention, and they're really worth looking at. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you to more of the Polish Arts Festival. Like in a minute, we're going to have the Polish Nobel Prize winners, the Irish, Nobel Prize winners, which will be delivered in Polish. And then probably a bit after 7 p.m., we're going to have our best recipe competition results. So whoever has submitted the works, please make sure that you stay on with us and you watch us. And then at 7:30, we're going to have Patrick Mercy and Survival Guide in together as one. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask now, or you can type them in, or we can just have the discussion move on to the medium of Facebook if you're on Facebook. If not, you can always email us. Okay? So have a lovely evening and see you in a minute.